Alrighty, so no silly YouTube intro, let's just get right to it. If you like Kevin Costner and you want to know how to make a ball field from scratch, you've come to the right place. This is my field of dreams in Bretagne, France. I had this idea when we got some farmland next to our house, and that's a funny side story I made a 1-minute cartoon about, and here's the link. By the way, vous pouvez activer les sous-titres en français pour cette vidéo. So the first attempt at planting grass didn't work out so well. I don't recommend trying to plant directly after harvesting corn in the fall. I used connections with local farming industry and their huge and efficient equipment, but because of their size, they actually compressed the soil too much. It was also just too wet and too late in the year, maybe end of October. Here we are planting the grass seeds with a tractor that is just not intended for this kind of work. So I basically ended up with prairie grass and floating corn stalks, as you can see here. I realized I should have probably turned over the field to embed the stalks under the ground, but I pretty much picked up everything by hand afterwards. So yeah, not a great result. So I decided to redo everything properly the next spring, and that meant starting with re-leveling the field. You can check out the grade of your field just using laser level at night, and you can see from this topological drawing here they recommend a 0.5% slope in the infield, 1% slope in the outfield, and about 2% for foul areas. And for kicks, I based the size of it on a Pony League field that I played up growing on in Houston, Texas, Post Oak, but with a 90-foot diamond, of course. What you want is a flat but slightly convex plateau on the infield so that water runs off. Mine had a bad west to east slope, so I had to build up one side and level it. We dug dirt from the foul area and then dropped it into the infield. A young landscaper named Gauthier did that with his backhoe. He also cleaned up the bank where the outfield fence was going. You gotta look out for bird nests in the spring. So he probably moved about 150 cubic meters of dirt, and he leveled it all out simply with the back of his hoe, that's what she said, and creating the transition from the infield to the outfield the best that he could. Before planting grass, if you have a chance, put some manure on the field. And thanks to my neighbor there, Pascal, he had about 8 cubic meters of pony fumier, or manure, that we spread out over the field. It's a good smelling team building exercise. And you can see my advanced technique for spreading out the manure from each pile. If you don't do this, you're going to get spots where the grass is really rich. So then we started breaking up the field and all the old prairie grass that was left over. This is done with a cultivator, or it's called a Canadien. And ideally, I wish I had turned over the land with a plow. This next tool is really important. It's called a subsoiler, or a sous-soleuse. So it furrows the ground about 2 feet deep, creating natural drainage trenches, as well as decompacting the soil. You want to drag it every meter or so and in the direction that you want water to run. And this is basically a bigger version of a subsoiler, but with 5 blades. We ran this over the whole field, slightly less deep, just to make sure we broke up all the dirt. So you just have to break up the clumps in your soil. This next one's called a rotary hoe, great tool. And it's just basically sliding teeth going back and forth, refining your soil. Now you have to use smaller micro tractors. This is where you really see the benefit of using a professional. So this machine, which is called a stone barrier or an enfouisseur de pierre, it breaks up, it throws the fine loose dirt on top, and it forces the stones to go underneath the soil. And you can see it's a dust storm because it's hardly rained at this time. So it's time to seed. And so with my buddy JC, we drew out the infield so that they wouldn't plant there. Here's the overseeder, or the engazonneuse. It takes a long time. It slices up the dirt a little bit, and then it lets the seeds fall at about a centimeter depth, and it compacts the soil behind it. And you can see here that they even do some areas by hand when it's close to the edge of the infield. And because it was so dry, they finished with a roller just to prevent the seeds and the dust from flying everywhere and to keep the moisture a little bit in the soil. Time to water. If you plant at the right time, you don't need to do this. But because of this hot French June, the landscaper said if I didn't, it was never going to grow. So I got the equipment, and I actually waited a week before watering until the next rainfall. As soon as the rain falls and the seeds start to germinate, you need to keep the juices flowing. And miraculously, the grass came. To give you an idea, 8 cubic meters of water means only 1 millimeter over the entire field. But you don't want to water that lightly. It's better to water about 5 millimeters in one area and then shift the next evening. And don't water during the day, otherwise it just evaporates. 90 days later, boom.
Oh yeah. Play ball, baby.
I couldn't wait to mow, so I bought this zero-turn mower, which I'm really happy with. It's got 3 blades rather than 2, really important. 21 horsepower, 43 inches wide. It could be a bit wider. I pull a little roller on it so it makes that striping. And I don't bag, I just cut a lot. The grass shavings act as a fertilizer, and if you don't want to mow often, then you gotta rake it up, which ain't no fun. Okay, so what's a ball field without a fence? That's the best part. Here's a cheap way of measuring out the distances for your outfield. I bought some stakes with pointed tips and chestnut wood, and you'll have to rent a digger because they do not go in easy no matter how strong your front might be. And make sure you paint the tips with tar or motor oil to avoid rotting.
Ça c'est les vacances. Home run field, fence. Boom, Bernard de Lyon, spécialiste à la masse. C'est normal, il fait ça toute sa vie.
Between the stakes, I used larchwood planks used for roofing. They were slightly warped and so a lot cheaper. Ask your hardware store for declassified wood. You want to space them out about 5 centimeters so a ball can't get through. Here are some finishing touches, and then the dugout as well. So the field is coming together nicely, but there's still no infield dirt. And so as of now, it's just weeds growing in. I called up my landscaper guys and they offered to help mechanically get rid of the weeds with a rotary hoe. And I had to painfully finish the job using a nail drag that I made, and that helped pull out all the old clumps of weeds. If you have serious money, you can buy pre-made infield mix, but hey, it's called infield dirt for a reason. So ideally you want about 70% of sand, and you can calculate that percentage in your soil by taking a sample and you add water, you shake it up, and after a couple minutes the sand will settle and then the clay and the silt will separate over the next day or two. Measure those proportions and hopefully you're close. I only had about 5% sand, so I had to calculate how much sand I needed to add over the entire infield to increase the percentage over the top 2 blah, 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 blah. Basically, I had to get about 8 cubic meters of sand. So I got masonry sand, which is what they shave off of rocks. For me, I think it's better than using ocean or round sand. And you do want to get the finest grade that they have. And hopefully the day that you go, they have reddish sand at the quarry. With my team, we hauled about 150 wheelbarrows onto the field. Hello, tendonitis. It's good to create a grid on the infield so you can space it out evenly. And at the same time, I was also working on the pitcher's mound, which is a lot of dirt moving as well. And the sand is going to mix in naturally with the dirt underneath over time. You're going to have to treat with Roundup over the entire infield about once a month in the spring and the summer. The Hollywood bases were put into place at this time, and that's actually the only cement on the entire field. You're going to want to fertilize once a year to keep the grass really green, and check out those percentages on the bag for reference. And there's a lot of other details which I had fun sketching out, and the team helped me with things like bat racks and backstop netting, wood for benches, a caravan for the locker room and the dry toilets. And I also got an old Peugeot G9 for the concession stand. And they also hooked me up with a beautiful sign. It's a lot of hard work, but now there's not much left to do but invite the guys over to play. Here's our team, the Quimper Sharks. And we're just waiting for you guys, Red Sox, Yankees, White Sox, Cubs, Cardinals of the past or the present. I'll just let you take in some images of this slice of heaven in Brittany, France. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So come on out and toss the ball around with us. And maybe, just maybe, they'll put your name up in the clouds as well.
My balls are a little wet. Ça va être bon.